You're listening to the Grind Line Podcast.
What's up, and welcome to another episode of the Grind Line Podcast. I'm your host, Greg. You're listening to episode 299, one away from 300. I am here tonight with Tyler. It is an absolutely depressing scene in Detroit. So we're going to go over some stuff tonight. Not so much of the games, but a little bit of who could be maybe the next coach of the Detroit Red Wings. So Tyler, how you doing?
Doing good. Tariq Skubal is the Cy Young Award winner for your Detroit Tigers. So
Unanimous.
yeah, I figured as much, but congrats to him. Congrats to that scrappy Tigers team. Hopefully they can get the ship righted going forward. But yeah, I'm doing good. I can't complain too much other than this Detroit Red Wings season that is circling the drain in mid-November.
Yeah, we had talked to Daniela last week. If you haven't listened to that episode, I would go back and take a listen to it. It's always good talking to Daniela. She provides a lot of really good insight and information. But we had said that you want to be in a playoff spot by American Thanksgiving, which is the 28th this year. So in about, what are we? We're on the 20th right now. So in 8 days, you want to be in a playoff spot. Now, the East is still awful. I mean, we're still, and apparently, so we went, I think, from being like the strongest division to absolutely like a dog shit division in 1 year, apparently. But we're not good. And neither are the teams all around us. Ottawa is flailing. Boston's flailing. The Buffalo Sabres are flailing. It's not a good scene, which I guess, like I said last week, is good for us in the sense that we're bad, but so is everyone else. So we're still all in the mix. I mean, I think we're still 3 points out of a wild card spot as it stands right now. So you win 2 games and everyone else loses a couple and you're right back in the thick of it. But we're not good. And I was hopeful after the Rangers game where they played really well. And then they went on this West Coast trip, lost just a game that was absolutely winnable to the Anaheim Ducks. You go and you lose to LA. Now, LA is a really good team, and that was probably an expected loss. But again, you look uninspired for most of the game. And then you go out and you have a not horrible performance against the Sharks, but you let them stay in. And that was a battle of just absolute, like, goofy goaltending is what that one was. It's like the world's weakest shots went in, fluky shots went in, but you let a Sharks team who is bad, you let them stay in the entire game, which was inexcusable. And you leave that West Coast trip with 3 out of 8 points, where you should have left that trip with 6 out of 8.
Yep, it's inexcusable. The LA game was absolutely uninspiring. The Anaheim game started out really good. What was it, 3-1 at one point or something like that? And then they go out and they blow the game essentially. That was terrible, man. That was absolutely terrible. And then, like I said, the LA game was horrible. The San Jose game, at spurts was really good, but goofy goaltending. And then you lose to the Sharks in overtime. That should be a fireable offense, in my opinion. I'm sorry that there's no scenario in my book that Derek Lalonde should be the head coach of the Detroit Red Wings come tomorrow morning. There's zero scenario that he should be coaching that team tomorrow night in Detroit against the Islanders. And again, it's not his fault. I will continue to say that. It's not his fault. But when the team isn't motivated after a loss to a terrible Anaheim team, and then you come out and you look like that against LA, and then you triple down on that and look terrible at a lot of times in the game against San Jose, one of the worst teams in the NHL. Like, what the fuck are we doing here? What is going on with the Yzer plan?
Well, you have a lot of, like, Jeff Petrie in that game. His controller disconnected multiple times. There were multiple times during that Sharks game where he just stood by and watched people blaze past him. Tyler Toffoli just like, bye, Jeff, and walks right around him and scores a goal. And it's horrible defense past the first pair. Mo and Simon, great. Past that pair, we've got nothing that looks even remotely like a second pair defense. Scoring is not happening past the power play and mostly the first line. The depth scoring is gone. Patrick Kane is mostly invisible. Vladimir Tarasenko, now, as of this morning in practice, he's up on the top line, but he's been mostly invisible. And you're getting no depth scoring where that was one of your strong points last season. And I'll push back on it not being Newsy's fault, because at some point, when you get to a point like this in the season where you're struggling this bad, you need to maybe think about not just changing your lineup, but changing your system. Maybe you need to say, okay, guys, we're just going to, for a couple games, let's ditch the defense first system. Goal scorers, go out there and score goals. We want you to be high pressure, high offense, push the guys in front of you and just go score goals and see how that works. Because again, I fell asleep partially during the first period of that LA game. And when I woke up during the second period, there were like 7 minutes left and the Kings already had like 28 shots on goal. That is inexcusable. There should be no world where that happens to you, but it happens to them every single game. So at this point, change your system. If it's not for 1 or 2 games, just do it, because what you're doing right now, in no world is it working.
Yeah, I agree with you. And, you know, the problem is he's a coach. He's not an old guy, right? But he's a coach. He's probably been doing this system thing the way it is his whole career. And he learned under John Cooper, who I don't know if he's a defense first kind of guy. I know Tampa's had some really octane offenses, but they for the most part have played very good defense over the years, and that's how they won their Stanley Cups. With this team, you're not trying to win a Stanley Cup. Obviously, that's the goal, but the goal is to make the playoffs. So you need to score goals.
You got to get there to win a cup.
You got to get there, man. You got to get to that point. And the thing is, when you have teams like the Flyers, the Penguins, the Senators, the Sabres, and the Blue Jackets all ahead of you, I mean, come on, man. Your roster is way better than Columbus, Pittsburgh, Philly, maybe even Boston.
Yeah. And right now, you've got 16 points. But the 2 teams ahead of you, Buffalo and Ottawa, they've got 17 points. The Bruins have 19. They're in that second wild card spot. The Lightning have 21. So you're only 5 points out of third place.
Yeah.
And the Maple Leafs have 24 points. So, and they've been without Austin Matthews for a while now. So it's there and you can claw back. But I think they need a major kick in the ass. And sometimes that kick in the ass is you fire your coach. The coach is the first one to go.
Yeah, the coach is the first one to go. We'll talk about one that was let go earlier this, what was it, yesterday? But here's the thing. Like, okay, we can blame Lalonde. We can blame Yzerman for not bringing back some of the guys that he let go. So mainly some of the puck-moving defensemen, because now you literally have one puck-moving defenseman, and its name is Moritz Seider. Simon Edvinsson is on the same. Okay, so if you want to say both of them can move the puck, okay, fine. Everybody else sucks at it, including Johansson. So I don't know, man. Like, do you fire the coach and then make a trade to shake things up? Do you make a trade and then hope that sparks you? Like, at this point, you need to start exploring every avenue. If you're Steve Yzerman, I'm sure he is exploring every avenue. We know Steve Yzerman isn't just going to take losses and accept the fact that this team sucks. So I would say if they lose tomorrow against the Islanders, you know, barring him being fired tomorrow morning, which I don't see happening. If it was going to happen, it would have been today, because they don't play today, and this would have been probably when they got back. If they lose to the Islanders, there's an off day on Friday afternoon, and you bet your ass if they lose to the Islanders and it's uninspiring, yeah, I don't think Newsy Lalonde will be calling Michigan home any longer. So, unfortunately, again, I think he's a good guy. I think he's a good hockey mind. I think he's a pretty good coach. I think that he would probably be better to coach a team that is ready to win a Stanley Cup versus a team like this. And that's super frustrating that now you've had 2 guys that are rookie head coaches that are good guys, And Jeff Blashill, mind you, will get another job in the NHL and will be a head coach at some point in the NHL. And again, 2 times, and it's neither of their faults 100%. Of course, there's some blame towards Blashill. There's some blame towards Lalonde. At the end of the day, you got to look at Steve Yzerman and be like, man, like this team just it's mid. It really is. It's just mid. And right now it's horrible, but overall it's been pretty mid. So I don't know what you do, but I'll tell you one thing: if they lose to the Islanders, I wouldn't want to be Derek Lalonde.
Well, I said this week that the roster that's on the ice, I think, is better than the product that you've seen. I think that there's a team there that is better than a 7-9-2 team. Now, are they a 9-9-0 team? Are they an 8-9-1 team? Maybe, but I don't think they're as bad as their play on the ice has been. It's just been uninspired. I think there's more talent there. You expect more out of a Tarasenko. You expect Bergeron to kick off. And we've talked about this ad nauseum because it's the same problems for the last 3 weeks that have been happening. And if you go back to listen to our episode from a few weeks ago, it's about coaching. And we're going to bring that back around tonight. We're going to look at 3 different options for coaching going forward. So right now, Newsy with this team has a winning record. Out of 182 games that he's coached, he's 83-78-21 with a 51.4% win percentage. But we want to look at a couple options that are out there that I think are sensible options going forward. Now, what I'm going to mention off the top is we're not going to talk about Joel Quenneville tonight. It's the name that people will continuously try to ram. Half the people will try to ram it because they think it's the edgy option and they want to be edgy. The other half will say no. I say no because of the baggage. You don't need the baggage that he brings. You don't need the media circus. You don't need another distraction. And I would not be comfortable getting Joel Quenneville in unless Kyle Beach came out with a statement saying, I talked to Joel Quenneville. I get like we've patched things up. I give him my blessing, whatever. That is what I would want to see if they hired Quenneville. Right now, he's not on my list simply because you're going to get rid of someone and then just bring in another distraction to throw the team off in the locker room. And I don't think it's worth it. So we're going to look at 3 different options tonight. Go ahead, Tyler.
Just quickly take all the other stuff out of it. And this is just in a vacuum. Joel Quenneville is the best option. But
I don't agree. He hasn't coached in how long?
Well, okay, that's fair too. There's the one thing that I will say is if there's someone that's not afraid to ruffle feathers one way or another, it's Steve Yzerman. I don't think it's going to happen. Personally, I kind of agree with you. I think that a team that would do that would be like a team like the Oilers that are trying to win a Stanley Cup that, you know, have a coach that doesn't get them over the hump.
I mean, they already hired Stan Bowman, so you might as well get the package deal, right?
Exactly. So, okay, let's move on from that.
Yeah, we're going to go past that. The first one I want to look
Chicago.
at is the other name that people everywhere are yelling for. And just every time I see the name, I'm like, do we have just the world's short? Are we like a goldfish? We have the world's shortest term memory. And that's Gerard Gallant. So I know the reason people bring it up is because he was friends with Yzerman. They were roommates when they played together. They both were around the Red Wings for a very long time. Gerard Gallant has never spent more than 2.25 seasons, 2.5 seasons coaching in one place. He started out with the Columbus Blue Jackets, then he went to Florida, then Vegas, then the Rangers. His career, he's coached 705 games. He's 369, 262, and 70 with 4 ties. He coached when there were ties in the league with the Columbus Blue Jackets. So he has a 5.17 win to loss percentage. So he's a 51.7% win rate. So he was the coach of the Western Conference champions, Vegas Golden Knights, in 2017-18, was fired in 2019-20, then went to the New York Rangers. And this is where I become very apprehensive about Gallant, besides the fact that he's never coached 3 full seasons anywhere. And he doesn't have a job now. He's been out of a job since last season. No one's hired him. Is when the New York Rangers had Capo Caco and Alexis Lafreniere come in, he buried them. And he seems to be really good at mismanaging young talent, heavily favoring vets, and just coming down hard on the young guys when they don't perform instantly and they get buried. And with a team like the Red Wings, where you've got a lot of young talent coming up, you have Axel Sandin Plika coming up, you got Marco Kasper and now, Simon Edvinsson and now, you could have Danielson and Mazer in next season as well. You're about to be a very young team. Someone posted earlier, the average age of the Detroit Red Wings is like 28.8, but you're about to be a much younger team. And I don't think a guy like Gallant lends well to a team that is young, that is learning, that is trying to get their footing. I think to your point, Tyler, he's probably more like a Newsy situation, where if you're a team that's developed and you're in it and you're pushing to try and win a Stanley Cup, maybe Gallant is a guy that you bring in to get you over that hump to win a championship. I'm not sure he's a guy you bring in that helps you develop that talent.
Yeah, I agree with you. I like Gallant. I think he's a good guy. I think a lot of the people in hockey like him. But that doesn't mean that he's good with young talent. We've seen that a couple places now. I'm a hard no on Gallant. I liked the idea of it before he coached the Rangers. I thought it would be a good fit. And then he went to the Rangers, and let's just face it, that Rangers team should have went a lot farther than they did. And they didn't. And that's in spite of Gerard Gallant, they were a pretty good hockey team, not because of Gerard Gallant. That was just a very talented hockey team. And you know, the Rangers continue to be a talented hockey team.
That Rangers team had a lot of overtime losses. They went 47, 22, and 13 that 2022-23 season.
Yeah, and I mean 47 losses is nothing to scoff at, but again, where did they get
wins.
bounced? Where did they get bounced that year?
They came in third place in the division.
I wonder if they got bounced against the Penguins that year. I think that was the 2021 season, was it?
That was 2022-23 was the last season he coached there.
Okay. So either way, I mean, like I said, I'm a hard no on Gallant. Again, I think he's a good dude, but it also tells me a little bit that the fact that he's not an assistant anywhere, that's not
he's not an anything anywhere. He didn't have a job last season and still doesn't have a job this season.
He's not a consultant. I mean, hey, look, you know, you've earned your right to do whatever you want to do, but if you really want to get back in the NHL, you become a consultant somewhere, you become, you know, an assistant somewhere, maybe you become a head coach in the AHL like Dan Bilesma did. I mean, you do what you got to do to get back into hockey. You can't just think, oh, well, you know, I'll just be one of the next recycled coaches. And that's another point that I want to make. We don't need, like, look, again, a lot of the times when you talk about this kind of thing, oh, we're, you know, new coach, a lot of people want to do the whole rookie coach thing. We've already tried that twice now. Gerard Gallant would be a recycled coach, but I think this team needs something closer to Gerard Gallant than some of the other people we're going to talk about.
Yeah, I would say that, and you're right. If I'm maybe looking way too much into it, if you haven't had a job in the past year and now even the beginning of this season, maybe teams are looking at Gallant and saying we're an up and coming team, because a lot of the established teams already have coaching. They're not firing their coaches. They're in it to win and to get a Stanley Cup. They're not firing their coaching right now. A lot of the teams that are firing their coaching are trying to make the playoffs or start developing and getting better. And they're not bringing him in maybe because he's not good with younger talent. And that's how you know you need to develop in this league. You can't win through free agency. You win through development. And he just doesn't seem like the kind of guy that can do that. So I'm also a no on Gallant.
The other thing is you got to get this one right if you're Steve Yzerman, because the leash is going to start getting shorter. I know it's Steve Yzerman. I know it's you know, a lot of our favorite hockey players ever. But that doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. It's a results-driven business. Steve Yzerman came home with one goal and one goal only, and that was to win a Stanley Cup in management, as he did it as a player in Detroit. And so far, he's failed to do that. Not 100% his fault. But again,
from the chill of the arena to skates on ice and people hitting the boards, an NHL game is a sports experience like none other. And when you are looking for tickets, your pick should be Game Time. Game Time is the only app that gives you complete peace of mind with your purchase. And see the great seats with Game Time picks and see the view from your seat on your phone before you buy your tickets. All-in pricing shows you your total cost up front, and you can buy tickets in seconds with just a couple taps. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less somewhere else, Game Time will credit you 110% off the difference. With event cancellation policies that automatically refund your tickets and 24-hour returns guaranteed, you are protected with the Game Time app. And starting now until December 2nd, Game Time is giving us an exclusive deal on Winter Classic tickets. You can get 10% on bleacher seats and 20 to 25% on home plate area tickets. So don't miss out on one of the biggest sporting events this year at Wrigley Field. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code THPN for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code THPN for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. The quest for the Stanley Cup starts now. The puck's dropping on the 2024-25 season. Get in on all the action at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL. It's super easy for first-timers to get started. Try betting on something simple like picking a team to win. Go to DraftKings Sportsbook app, select your team, and place your first bet. Right now, the Red Wings are a long shot to make the Stanley Cup, but you can put a bet in anyways, and if they turn things around, you might make a bit of cash. And if you are new to DraftKings, listen up. New customers bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code THPN. That's code THPN for new customers to get $200 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 and over. Age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/ice.
And we're back, and I kind of want to go over something you said before we went to break, and that it is not, you're correct in saying it's not all Yzerman's fault, and there are also a lot of people online right now calling to fire Yzerman, and I think there are several other levers you pull before you fire your GM. You let your GM replace the coaching staff. Someone had also brought up the point that saying they don't think Yzerman will fire Newsy because then that will look like he failed at picking a coach, and I don't think that's true either. I think that Newsy had improved this team every season up until now, but this is the season where you're supposed to take this next step. And he's not, at the beginning of this season, the way they've come out in the losses that they've had, it's not just the losses, but the way they've played. That is what should force a change. To me, if I'm Yzerman, I'm happy with the first two seasons that Newsy came in and did. And Newsy's on the final year of his contract right now. I'm happy with the first two seasons. Firing him now, I don't think would be an indictment on Steve Yzerman. And I think another move Yzerman could do would be to fire his pro scouting team, because the people that they have given to him, the Ben Sherratts, the Jeff Petrie for trade, the signing guys like Kopp to that deal that he signed him to, I think that is an indictment on your pro scouting staff. And I think your pro scouting staff, I would fire all of them right now and hire all new ones.
Yeah, I saw a tweet that the Red Wings don't actually have a head of pro scouting, which is astounding to me.
No, but they've got Steve Yzerman's brother and Kirk Maltby.
Okay. Well, again, like I said, let's maybe bring somebody in here that, again, nothing.
There's no nepotism. Is that what we're going to say?
Okay. Yes. That's my point. It's like, and when we talk about the other person that was just fired, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. We'll talk about a little bit of that, because I think there's a little bit of a problem in the NHL when it comes to former players and stuff like that. But we'll get into that when we talk about the other firing.
Well, let's talk about the next former player. So the other name that everyone throws around, and this one I think would be intriguing. Now, it does go to the doesn't have any NHL coaching experience, but does have coaching experience as a head coach, and that's Sergei Fedorov. So Sergei Fedorov, again, this I think is pipe dream kind of stuff, and not that it would necessarily go well. It would be really cool to see as a Red Wings fan, and it might produce the same result as Newsy did. But Sergei Fedorov has had coached in 21-22 through the 2023-24 season for CSKA Moscow in the KHL, where he won the Gagarin Cup in 21-22 and 22-23, won it 2 years in a row, was named Coach of the Year. He has, and their charts are so hard to read because they split it up in a million different ways. but he has 175 regular season games coached, where he has 78 wins. And let's see, where's losses? Losses total 52 losses. So he's an established coach, and established is kind of weird to say because he's only coached 3 seasons, but he's made it all the way and won championships in 2 of them. And again, it's the KHL, and I believe CSKA is Putin's team, so it might be kind of hard to lose the cup when you do that. But I mean, it would be cool if for nothing but the name, and it may produce the same result as we are seeing now, but it would produce the same result in a cooler way, I guess. I mean, I think it's worth giving it a shot, but you've got to be damn sure that he is going to win, or at least give the team the energy, give the team the fire. He's proven that he can be a good coach. What is weird is with how good he wasn't renewed, and he's out there jobless right now. He's not doing anything in hockey currently. So like, that is another thing that's like, it's weird because he doesn't have a job. Like, when you're that good, you should immediately get another job.
Yeah, maybe he doesn't want to do it though. I mean, and that's the other thing. It's like, you know, it's Sergei Fedorov. Okay, great. Another name. Like, great with the names, okay?
Hey, I know that guy.
But we need to start delivering on those, because not every single executive that was a former player or a great former player is a great executive or a great coach. I mean, see Wayne Gretzky, okay? Wayne Gretzky was a horrible coach. I mean, and I'm not saying he was a horrible coach, but he wasn't as good of a coach as he was as a player.
Patrick Waugh.
Okay. Some people just
for a while
aren't cut out for it. So again, my point is, you have to be sure about this one. And I think this is going off on, this is really reaching if you're Steve Yzerman. Again, if you, in your heart, being Steve Yzerman, think, okay, my buddy, former teammate, really good hockey mind, pretty good hockey coach from what we can see, Sergei Fedorov, could be the next coach of the Detroit Red Wings, and you believe in your heart of hearts that he's going to help develop the young talent and give these guys a swift kick in the ass, have at it.
Sergei is a guy, though, that I think I could see him. Like, I don't think Newsy is a guy to go into the locker room and peel paint. I think Sergei is a guy that would just go in there and yell at them in Russian for 10 minutes, and they'd have no idea what's going on, but they'd be scared shitless, and they'd go into that next period with some, like, I think we need to do something.
Has there ever been a Russian head coach in the NHL?
I don't know. That's not a question I'm prepared to answer off the top of my head.
Ever has. I really don't.
I think, though, Sergei is a guy, though, and we've seen it with some of his KHL games, where I think the one thing he has to his advantage is he's not really afraid to take chances. He is the guy that pulls his goalie with 5 minutes left in the period, 7 minutes left in some games. When he coached, he pulled the goalie just to try to get back into it, and it was successful at times. I think that, and like you said, the rookie NHL head coach thing, we've tried it twice, and Sergei's never coached in the NHL. And I know at some point hockey is hockey, but he's also got a really long playing career. And I think that is one thing that also adds to his advantage, even though you say, like, sometimes the players are not the best coaches, given the Wayne Gretzky example. But Sergei was an extremely high-level player, but he's also coached really good hockey. So sometimes those things do go hand in hand. And if anyone from outside the organization currently gets a shot, I'd like to see Sergei as that option. If that's like if that's the route they're like, we're only going with people from outside the org, that's who I would take, besides maybe Igor. But Igor's he's already a head coach over in the KHL currently. So I could see, the only reason I couldn't see it happening, they haven't retired his jersey. So clearly there is still something there with the organization. And if anything, I think the Ilitches would veto it and just say, well, we're still going to be stubborn and we're still going to hold a grudge and we don't want him near the organization.
Again, enough. This isn't the 90s anymore. This isn't the early 2000s anymore. I've had enough of that whole sentiment. And a lot of people can say what they want about Russians and blah, blah, blah. Well, guess what? You just celebrated number 13 Pavel Datsyuk, right? He's going in the Hall of Fame, and congrats to him. One of the best Red Wing players of all time. One of the most underrated Red Wings players of all time. Okay, so you're going to celebrate him, but then you're going to poo-poo on Sergei Fedorov because he ended up going to Anaheim for more money or whatever the situation was back in those days.
I think it's more the whole he left thing. And
guess what?
So the story goes though that they offered him the same amount of money and he chose to leave.
Players leave. Players move on. It's a business. People need to get over that. And if the Ilitches can't get over that, then I mean, okay, then Sergei Fedorov's not going to be, his numbers 91's not going to be retired, and he's not going to be the head coach. Anyways, I mean, that's kind of all I have on Sergei Fedorov. I'm a yes, but I just don't see it happening. Not at this point. Not at this point.
Now you could retire his number and like you could make him coach, and then in the first game he coaches, retire his number. And that would be pretty cool. I think that would be like a night that would instantly, like tickets would instantly sell out for that.
I agree.
Again, I don't see it happening simply because he doesn't have the NHL experience and maybe the little background stuff with the Ilitches.
It's also not an NHL thing to happen. That's like a very like basketball thing. Like, oh, LeBron retired and he left Cleveland, but now he's the best coach available, and now he's going to coach the Cleveland Cavaliers without any coaching experience, and oh, we're going to retire his number now because he was a local boy and blah 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 and won a championship here and all that stuff. So yeah, I mean that's kind of similar to what the whole Sergei Fedorov thing would be. Again, I think it would be cool. I just don't see it happening, and I don't think the scenario you just laid out, him coming and getting the number retired, that's very NBA.
It's like an NHL fan fiction
doing that.
that someone would write. It's like a fever dream that Red Wings fan somewhere has had at one point. We're going to take another, though, quick short break, and then we'll come back to talk about the last coaching option that we have on the docket here. So sit tight for just one more message from our sponsors. We love Black Friday. It's that time of year where you get deals on things you normally would never think about getting deals on, except with Raycon. Because with Raycon, you get an amazing deal on premium audio every day of the year. But that doesn't mean they're not having any sales on Black Friday. Far from it. They're actually doubling down on amazing value by offering our viewers up to 30% off site-wide. A Black Friday deal you'll appreciate every day? Raycon's everyday earbuds, especially if you haven't checked out their latest model, which includes plenty of new features that make them even more of a must-have for any audio lover. Now featuring a 32-hour battery life and multi-point connectivity that lets you pair with 2 devices at one time. Raycon's everyday earbuds also come with active noise cancellation. It's a feature that's a must-have for us on long flights, but one that can be difficult to find at an accessible price point until now, because that's another thing. Although Raycon's quality rivals some of the biggest names in premium audio, Raycons start at just half the price as the other guys, so they're already an incredible deal even before you factor in their Black Friday offer up to 30% off site-wide. Raycon's everyday earbuds are also available in a variety of vibrant colors, so you don't have to have just the standard issue white or black earbuds sticking out of your ears. Now's the perfect time to scoop them up if you haven't already, and don't worry, if you're not as impressed as I am, Raycon offers a 30-day happiness guarantee, so you can't really lose. It's time to save big for Black Friday. Go to buyraycon.com/THPN today to get up to 30% off site-wide. That's right, you'll get up to 30% off everything on Raycon's website when you go to buyraycon.com/THPN. And for our final segment, I think I'm going to go with the most realistic option. So the Boston Bruins, they did it. The Boston Bruins fired Jim Montgomery. And again, the Bruins have sucked. They're a team that probably has gone further than they should have gone for the past few seasons. They were the ones that we were expecting a fall off, didn't happen. We're expecting a fall off again, didn't happen. Looks like this year it's happened. They've got a bad pipeline. They don't have a lot of promise. They've got old guys signed to big contracts. Boston is in some pretty deep doo-doo here, and they have fired Jim Montgomery. And this is where you immediately fire your coach and you go, absolutely. I would have had Jim on the phone 2 seconds after the firing was announced. Jim Montgomery has coached 298 games in the NHL with a record of 180, 84, and 33 for a 65.9% win percentage, or points percentage, I should say. It's to me, it's a no-brainer. Like, that's the dude. Like, he's a guy he's a decently level-headed coach. He can get fiery when he wants to be fiery. He's taken teams that had no business being where they were to that point. coached 2 seasons in Dallas, 3 seasons in Boston. He's just a guy that I think gets it done. He gets results. He's not afraid to make changes. He's a winning coach. And even Boston fans, and you're right in the thick of it, and you're probably going to talk more than I will about this, that the fans are sad to see him go, and that any team that picks him up, that's an immediate upgrade.
Yeah, I think the sentiment around here, and me living in the Boston area, a lot of people were sad to see him go. At the same time, they knew it had to be done because the team looks like shit, and thankfully, finally, maybe the Bruins are starting to have to look reality in the face, much like we did after that second playoff series loss to the Tampa Bay Lightning, where we had to look in the mirror and say, look, we have Henrik Zetterberg, Pavel Datsyuk, an injured Johan Franzen, an old Nick Kronwall, Jimmy Howard. Like, it was an old roster, and we had to look ourselves in the mirror and say, you know what? This rebuild is going to take about 8 years. And we still haven't made the playoffs. So Boston is staring that reality in the face, and that Jim Montgomery firing is just the start of it. I think they're going to have to make some changes in management, and that's what a lot of people that I talk to that are pretty close to the Bruins organization think is going to have to be a reality. And this is where I go into the conversation of the NHL has a problem. The NHL has a major problem when it comes to players, former players that become executives, that become presidents, that become head coaches, less so, but more so presidents and general managers. And they get a long leash, man. They get too long of a leash. Don Sweeney has been the general manager in Boston since Peter Chiarelli got fired in 2012, 13, somewhere around there, 14 maybe. And he whiffed in the 2015 draft, I believe it was. They had 3 first-round picks, and they took Zaboral, Senyshyn, and they took Jake DeBrusk. And behind them was Matt Barzal, Kyle Connor, and Thomas Chabot, and great players like that. So the point is I don't think it's Jim Montgomery's fault that Boston is where they're at right now. And then you couple it by making some mistakes with your franchise goaltender and Swayman and jerking him around, then also giving Nikita Zadorov a massive contract, giving Elias Lindholm a massive contract. Well, that's where you're at right now. So anyways, not to give you too much of a Bruins moment there, but there you got it anyways. I love the idea of Jim Montgomery being the head coach of the Detroit Red Wings. Kind of similar to what I said about the whole LeBron conversation, though. I just don't see in the NHL of all leagues someone getting fired and then someone had just getting fired from somewhere going to another place that was just like, it sounds like a pipe dream. Hey, you know what? Maybe it will work out that way. And if the Wings lose to the Islanders tomorrow, mark my words, on Friday there will be change in Hockey Town. I'm telling you right now, there will be change, because you're circling the drain, but like you said earlier, they're still in it right now. And a guy like Montgomery would come in here. Again, I don't know what he would be like in Detroit, because it's a situation probably not too similar to what he's dealt with in the past. Maybe similar to what he had in Dallas, where they had some older vets, but then they had some young guys coming up.
Yeah, because in Detroit you don't have a Pasternak. You don't have someone like a Swayman or an Allmark in goal.
No, but think about the Dallas teams, though. They had a Ben, they had a Sagan, they had maybe a young Miro Heiskanen.
I think he's coached enough in different situations, though, that he's adaptable to it, is what he is.
The best available.
But it's also, he's the guy that gets the most out of his roster, I feel. And that's what we said at the beginning of this segment, is that he's a guy who took a team last season who had no business getting to the playoffs and made it to the playoffs on one of the best records in the NHL. Like,
this team would be night and day with Jim Montgomery as head coach. I don't know what you do about the defense part of it, like in terms of you change your breakout. Maybe you do, but I don't know. Again, I don't know. I know enough about Jim Montgomery's system, but with the Bruins, I don't know what he would come to Detroit. What the plan would be? Detroit would it be something that do, or would it be something that they have a couple meetings and then hit the ice on Saturday night and that's what it is? I don't know. I really don't know. But I'll tell you what, Derek Lalonde is on a very thin piece of ice right now, and the Red Wings, I mean, they have to make a change. If they can't beat the Islanders tomorrow night, they have to make a change.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that's where we're going to leave it tonight. Tyler, I want to get your final thoughts before we sign off.
Yeah, final thoughts are, let's just hope this turns around. You know, like, I don't like talking about firings. I don't like talking about one of my favorite players of all time, and Steve Yzerman, potentially being on the hot seat, or, you know, people talking about that. I don't think he's on the hot seat. Let's be honest here. But it's a tough conversation to have because it's somebody's livelihood. I know they make a lot of money and all this other stuff, but at the end of the day, it's their livelihood. And, you know, Derek Lalonde's a good man, and I'm sure we'll land on his feet somewhere else. I just don't think it's worked out in Detroit thus far. And unfortunately, unless they go on an 8-0 run, I just don't think it's going to work out. Because even at the end of the season, if he doesn't have a contract extension, then what are we even doing here? Why would you ever go into a season with a lame duck coach? I never understood that. I still will never understand that. Lame duck manager in baseball, it's stupid. It makes no sense. I guess part of it is if you get off to a good start, you know, maybe you extend them, but they're not off to a good start. So maybe it's the other edge of the sword where you fire them. So those are my final thoughts. You can follow me on Twitter at SealDog91.
Yeah, I kind of echo that sentiment. You win against New York, maybe you give yourself a little bit of a longer leash. I think if you lose to the Islanders, that should be it. You call it. If Boston can do it after doing what they've done, after what they did last season, and then coming out short like this and having an awesome coach, and the coach is always the first one to go. If Boston can do it, Detroit, I don't think, has any other excuse, especially after the statement that Sweeney released saying they owe it to their fans to be better than that.
How about this?
Oh, God.
Friday afternoon, Derek Lalonde fired, and guess who comes into Hockey Town on Saturday night?
Who comes in? Boston?
Boston Bruins. Imagine Jim Montgomery on the other side of the bench against his former team is in his first game as a
and then
coach.
you lay the smackdown on them.
Wouldn't that be something phenomenal? I can talk shit until the rest of the
that is the boost your team needs.
I would love it, honestly. And again, like I said, it's an NBA kind of thing and an NBA kind of conversation. But you know what? At this point in time, the things are starting to line up a little bit. So, anyways.
Yeah, well, you can follow me online at Bringing the Wing. You can follow the Grindline Podcast online at Grindline Pod. We are also on, and this is where everyone is going, to Blue Sky. So if you can follow us there too. I am also on Blue Sky at GLP-Greg. You can follow us there too. We like to give a shout out to the Hockey Podcast Network at HockeyPodNet for hosting us and spreading us around. Also to Vintage Detroit, which is the only place you should get your Detroit jerseys from and worked on, and where we have an exclusive t-shirt collection where my new designs are on the final approval process. So those should be going up pretty soon too. 4 or 5 new designs going up on Vintage Detroit from us. You can follow us and subscribe on YouTube. Turn on notifications. We get notified every time an episode goes live. We do have a Patreon. If you go to patreon.com/Grindline Podcast, very, very small Patreon fees helps us keep the light on, keep our subscriptions going, and keep us delivering the podcast. But that is going to do it for us tonight. So for Tyler, I am Greg. You stay classy, Hockey Town.